chief of the Southern Cheyenne tribe, and even though I resisted the settlement, which included part of my people's land, I was not like the other chiefs. I believed in protecting my people, not by war, but by negotiating treaties with the white man. I did sign this treaty. It said that as long as me and my people stayed out of the white man's way, my people would be safe. So they gave us land to live on. They called it Sand Creek, but we called it home. Along with this land, the white man gave me his flag, and told me as long as this flag flew over my tribe's camp, that me and my people would be safe. But I guess the white man forgets easily. In November of 1864, an army of white men came, and they were led by a man named Colonel Shivington. I watched as they slaughtered my people, and most of the ones they killed were innocent women and children. What kind of a leader would have his men kill innocent for what? More land? I and my wife barely escaped the massacre along with others. Did I not move my people to this land and have their flag above my people's encampment as a symbol of peace? But now that flag is just another broken promise made by the white man. But now that the white men have taken our lodges, horses, and everything else, I still must ensure the safety of my people. I went and negotiated with the white man in hopes that this time he would keep his promise, for I do not want my people to go through any more bloodshed and hardship. But a man named Roman Nose and those who follow him are making it hard for the white man to trust me and my people anymore. Because Roman Nose and his men are continuing to raid and kill the white men on their land. I tried to control them, but I couldn't, and after negotiating with the white man, we were given land in Indian territory. This land was by the Washita River. This happened not by war, but by signing treaties. The Treaty of Little Arkansas River. It was signed in October. I thought that since we got our own land, Roman Nose and his men would stop the raids and killing of the white man. But they continue this. And even though we have made peace with the white man, they came on their horses on the dawn of a cold November morning. They rode into my people's camp, led by a man who went by the name of General Philip Sheridan. For a while I stood and watched as they slaughtered my people again. Then I and my wife tried to escape by crossing the river, but then I heard a gunfire and watched as my wife fell onto the ground and all of the life drained from her eyes. The gun went off again and again. Then I felt the bullets of a coward hit my back. I fell to my knees and hit the ground. The bullets forced me into my soon death, but what the white man doesn't know is that there is a storm coming.
Hi, my name is Spotted Tail. I was born in 1823 and died August 5th, 1881. My name is Jumping Buffalo. Slight Glisra. I had one child. His name was Ahapa, or Fallen Leaf. My dad's name was Tangled Hair or Chunka. My mom's name was Walks with the Pipe. I took place in the Granite Massacre. I declined to participate in the Red Cloud's War. I was a statesman and spoke for peace and defying my rights for my tribe. I made several trips to Washington, D.C. in the 1870s to represent my people, the Sioux. I was killed by Crow Dog for taking a crippled man's wife away from him. I got my name Spotted Tail by receiving a raccoon tail from a white trapper. I wore this raccoon tail in my war headdress.
I was born in the forks of Platte River, which is North Platte, Nebraska. My father died when I was young, and my mother was in Oglala. I was raised in the household of my uncle Chief Smoke. Much of my life was being part of the war, which was often against Crow and Pawnee. In 1866, I had a good war against the United States, even fought by an Indian nation. My strategies were successful by 1868, and the United States have agreed to the Fort Laramie Treaty. This treaty means that the United States abandoned the Bozeman Trail and guaranteed the Lakotas their rights to what is now the western half of South Dakota, including the Black Hills. I didn't join Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull and the other war leaders in the War of the Lakotas until 1876 to 77. Unlike Sitting Bull and Bigfoot, I escaped the Army's occupation unscathed. Throughout the 1880s, I struggled with the Pine Ridge Indian Agent Valentine over the distribution of government food and supplies and the control of the Indian police force. When going to fight, I was on my way and was giving directions to the warriors, but somehow I had the directions wrong. When I would gather with the people, I would put a blanket down in the middle of the council circle. This was the most important part of the ceremony when meeting with my people. I was a part of the war led by Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull against the Indians. The fight was so bad that Custer and Crazy Horse didn't even take the time to notice who they were going up against. The war against the miners and the Army was surprisingly successful. Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, and I killed 100 soldiers. Then I died in 1909, but my life was made as a testimony in variety ways, which Indians resisted their conquest.
I was born on September 8, 1828 in Taylorsville, Ohio. I grew up on a farm near Dayton. I started early as part of the United States military. It wasn't my choice to be placed there, but I was nominated by the congressman. I didn't do well, but I did try. I was ranked towards the bottom of my class, where I did a lot of time fighting. I was put into the 4th United States Infantry, where I started out and did lots of fighting against the Indians. I fought in many Indians' wars, such as the Snake War, which Crazy Horse and his men had surrounded me. I had to face a lot of challenges throughout my lives of the battles because I was hurt. I was captured and held as a prisoner in Richmond for a month until the exchange was made. I didn't win every battle that I was put in, and I had lost a lot of men. I was used as a replacement for David Hunter when he was killed in the Second Battle of Cranston. I stayed faithful to all the Indians I had made friends with, even though I was first brought into the Army, and my job was to round up all the Indians and put them on a reservation. Everyone who had tried this had failed, but for some odd reason, they had hoped of me to do so. The government had declined 18 treaties with them and left them with no rights. Me, on the other hand, I didn't quite agree with the way that the Indians were treated. I believed that they were people also. I made friends with the Indians and formed relationships with the Nez Perce and Shoshone. I was asked by Custer to help him get a band of Indians. As I was ready, I rode into the canyon, but my scouts had turned around and told us it was a bad idea. We listened and we turned around. The band had split my group, but we still stayed strong. After a few days, we didn't engage in any more fights, and the band had backed off. 7 days after, Custer had word that we retreated to the south, but if I would have defeated the Sioux and the Cheyenne, I would have continued my march, but I just lost interest. I never got the chance to tell Custer about us retreating. 8 days after I retreated, he went ahead and attacked. When I heard about Custer's fall, I had a good reason not to be there, and I said we were part of the largest military, but not only did I fall back, but Terry and Gibson had also. After the battle of Terry and I had followed the Lakotas and Cheyenne, we didn't have much luck. We headed to the Black Hills where we picked a fight and killed many women and men. Crazy Horse and his Oglalas were near. They heard about the trouble we caused. Crazy Horse got together a big group of warriors and headed towards us. We fought a little bit, but slowly after we started to lose, I finally had my men retreat into the Black Hills. Terry and I had failed our summer campaign in the northern plains, but I was a success in the southwest where I had become a great Indian fighter.
Name's George Armstrong Custer, and I like to keep it that way if I don't mind saying. Best general I would say in all the glorious United States. I was the last to graduate from my class, which I don't care about, and I also like to say one hell of a leader during the Civil War, charged the enemy line in every single battle I came across, and won every single time. Many people said I was reckless. Huh, how about reckless? How about this? Does winning every battle show that I'm reckless? I don't think so. And I'm a winner, So what if I had many casualties in the war? Should I even care if I lose a couple men here and there? They died for their causes, that's good enough to know. Now I like to think that everyone loves me, and I bet they do. Well, I guess some don't have minds to comprehend on how magnificent and brave I am. I mean, I helped get rid of these savages, or as they call themselves, Indians, for the people of this good country, and some aren't appreciative about that. Well, let me explain this. I am very famous for helping this country expand during the Indian Wars. I led the attack at Washita River, which was one of my finest moments in the Indian Wars with these savages. It was very bloody and gruesome, but don't expect it all to be flowers and sunshine. Although we lost a few men, why should I feel bad if they ran off and got themselves killed? Then Mr. Frederick Benteen thinks it was my fault for getting one of his friends killed. Ha! Not likely. I told him to go kill some Indians, and what does he do? He gets himself killed. Not my fault. Then he decides to write a letter that criticizes my leadership. Would have whipped him if he didn't have a pistol in hand. Now, I know that you are thinking that I was a fool for taking on the encampment in Little Bighorn, but heck, it made me a very known person, made me a hero of the United States. Battle of Little Bighorn was my greatest moment, although I died. My last stand, which showed that mine was the best of all time throughout the history of this great nation.
During my life, I had many interesting things happen. I was a leader of an army and had a plan that had worked before that didn't end up working this time, and the Indians were able to take my life. Me and my army spotted an Indian village over the hill. We didn't know how many people there were, but we thought we could take them. Since my plan had worked before, I divided my army into 3 groups. Reno, Benteen, and I all led part of it. We were going to surround the village like we had done before in hopes that it would work again. I went up over the hill, while Reno went south and Benteen went north. I went up over the hill, and I saw that the village was much larger than I expected. But we weren't going to give up. We still attacked the village. One of the other groups had to fall back, and I didn't know it. So I ended up getting surrounded by Indians. Benteen, one of my men, hated me, and we all knew it. He could have saved me and my men, but instead he decided to hold back, knowing I would die. My life was taken at the Battle of Little Bighorn on that hill. The remains of my body were taken to Wolf Point, where they put my body to rest. I was known as a heroic leader, and they even made statues of me. But a person named Wilson McDonald didn't like that, and made it to where some had to be taken down.
I led my warriors in charges that shattered the defenses of Reno and Ancaster. My warriors and I broke Reno's left wing in the timber when their vision was limited. We had Reno's men fleeing for their lives, scared and shocked. I still see the images of when I would ride up next to a fleeing soldier and strike them with my war club. When they were out of club range, I shoot them cowards as fast as I could reload my rifle. After Reno's men fled up the bluff, we turned our direction towards Custer. My second charge was also successful, breaking off Custer's right flank above on the ridge. We finished them off easy. As I blew my horn, it gave away our position. My warriors and I withdrew much fire. Only a few of us were hit and dead. I remained untouched and ready to take more lives from the 7th Cavalry. The day continued to trudge on as Ice Bear, Little Horse, and I led the surprise attack as we crawled through the tall grasses. We jumped up, catching Custer and the rest of the 7th off guard, taken by surprise. We let him have it as we charged in, striking with clubs, tomahawks, blades, and spears, and arrows flinging in all directions, each hitting a 7th Cavalry soldier, ending his life. On the hill I saw a soldier, a coward, attempting to flee the battle. I hopped on my horse and ran him down and slaughtered him. As we stood on that hill, seeing Custer dead and most of his men, besides Benteen, who remained unseen throughout the entire day, the following day, I was chosen to be commander-in-chief of the Sioux and Cheyenne warriors. None of us planned to fight that day. We had no choice but to defend our elders, women, and children, and ourselves during the unprovoked attack. In the end, we made Custer pay.
Today, under General Custer's command, we attacked the Plains Indians. General Custer sent me with 3 companies to attack the village from the south. We hadn't yet understood how big the village was until our arrival. Our plan to attack the village quickly fell apart as hundreds of warriors came after us. I ordered my troops to form a skirmish line, but the Indians outnumbered and outflanked us. One of our Arikara scouts was shot in the head while standing next to me and got all over me. I couldn't think straight and led a retreat into the timber along the river. As I was retreating towards the bluff, I heard a crack of a gunshot and felt a searing pain in my neck. One of the Indians had shot me. I continued to ride towards the bluff, disregarding my wound, which was luckily only a flesh wound. When what was left of my company arrived on the hill with me, I had little hope of us winning this battle. We were clearly outnumbered, and our men were dropping like flies. After a while, Captain Benteen arrived at my position, and it looked as if his companies were still intact. Shortly after, Captain McDougall's company arrived with supplies. We were fighting off smaller groups of Indians with gunfire coming and going, but off to the northeast, much heavier gunfire could be heard, and it became clear that what General Custer had stepped into was much heavier than we could have imagined. Thomas Wire, commander of Benteen's D Troop, disobeyed our orders and led his men to the high bluffs to observe the rest of the battle. Benteen eventually led his troops over to Wire's platoon, but soon retreated when a horde of native warriors came charging. The warriors took the ground above us and fired down on us until nightfall. We used this time to nurse the wounded and prepare for the following day. The battle started up again at dawn and did not end until we saw the village being broken up in the late afternoon. We moved towards the river, where General Terry and Colonel Gibbon found us.
I, Frederick Benteen, was a part of General Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry and fought in the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Before the battle, I wrote a letter to the newspaper and mentioned a lot about things about Custer. The general pulled us all together and started complaining about how we weren't supposed to talk to the media, and if he ever found out who did it, he swore he would whip them to hell. I was obviously no coward and owned up to it. We bickered for a while, but he never dared to lay a finger on me. My job in the Battle of the Little Bighorn was to prevent any Indians running upriver, and if I saw them, I was to kill them immediately. If there were no Indians, I was supposed to head back and aid Custer in the battle. I was the scout on the left of Custer. During the battle, Custer finds out that Reno is being dominated, so Custer sends a messenger to me and says, "Benteen, come on, big village, be quick. Bring packs. P.S. Bring packs." I decided to take my time because Custer thought of himself as invincible. He could fight on his own. One of my soldiers kept questioning me why we were going so slow once we met up with Reno. I kept making up excuses like, "We have to wait for ammunition to arrive." But he just replied with, "We have enough ammunition," and left to help General Custer with a group of men. They arrived only in time to see General Armstrong Custer die right in front of them. We all left from the battle, but the Indians found us and attacked us. Reno and I managed to survive and went straight to the media and told them our story. Later, I found out that no one survived that was with General Custer. After the battle, I was in the Nez Perce campaign in 1877. I was later suspended that same year due to being drunk and having disorderly conduct in Utah. Because of that, I was almost dismissed from the Army, but President Grover Cleveland thought about it and changed it to a 1-year suspension. I decided to retire in 1888 because of rheumatism and heart disease. I died 10 years later.
I've been fighting against the whites before the Battle of Little Bighorn. In 1864, my village was attacked by General Sully. My people were attacking forts and wagons up the Missouri. Shortly before the battle, during the ceremony, I had my skin taken off my arms, and I danced a long time, and I fainted the next day because of the blood loss from my arms. I had a vision that Custer's zombies fell into the camp. My people were happy to hear what happened in the vision I had. They thought the vision meant they would kill all of the Custer's army. I wasn't a war leader during the Little Bighorn, but I was a spiritual leader during the Little Bighorn. I did not fight with my people when Custer attacked because I was taking care of the families to get them to safety. My people killed Custer and many of his troops that day. After the Little Bighorn, we went to Canada and stayed there for a while because there was not enough food, and we came back to the United States in 1881. I worked in Buffalo Bill's Cody Wild West show for 4 months, and I came back to the reservation, but it never felt like home. I got killed by the tribal police because they thought I would join and promote ghost dancers.